Welcome to Ask.The.Latina. With only 4% of RNs being of Hispanic background, we need more Hispanic nurses to serve the increasing number of Hispanics in the U.S., which is projected to reach 30% of the nation's population by 2050. Today, our guest is Stacey Hernandez, who was a registered nurse at Beaumont Hospital. Thank you, Stacey, for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about your family, and is there anyone else in the medical field apart from you?
So a little bit about my family. I'm first generation. Both of my parents immigrated here from Mexico in 1990, and I'm the only person in my family who is in the medical field as of yet. I have a cousin who is training to be a paramedic down in Mexico.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
How many siblings do you have?
I have two other siblings. I have two brothers who are younger than me. I'm the oldest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When did you decide that you wanted to be a nurse?
I actually remember wanting to be a nurse ever since I was in high school. It always, what intrigued me was the medical aspect of it. And as time went on and I dove a little deeper into nursing, I realized that there was more to it and that I was interested in the human aspect of caring and healing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. What was your path like through college, and where did you apply, and how long did it take for you to become a registered nurse?
So directly out of high school, I went right into college and applied at OCC, Oakland Community College. I strictly followed the path through to be a nurse and apply for their program. I applied in October, in the month of October, I forget what year already.
That's okay.
And I heard back from the nursing program in February, and I was told I was accepted into the program. Great. A lot of it to try to get through into the program was the hardest part was trying to figure out what the next step was, because nobody else in my family had previously had the opportunity to go to college or to a university. So the hardest part of all of that was just trying to figure out what the next step was in order to get where I needed to be.
And how did you figure that out?
A lot of it was doing my own work, asking around, asking people, calling offices, trying to figure out what I needed to do.
Wow,
so
that's good. Well, that's one obstacle. What are other obstacles that you experienced, and how did you confront it while you were attending nursing school?
So one of the hardest things during nursing school was trying to find that work-life balance. I needed to work because since nobody else in my family had gone to a university, there's a big bill that comes with that. So I had to, during nursing school, I had to work part-time at Beaumont as a nursing assistant, and then find the time to do school full-time. So that was one of the hardest struggles, but what made that a little bit easier was having my family to help me. My mom is a stay-at-home mom, so having her to help me with just little day-to-day things helped out a lot. And then thankfully, you know, my dad, who works day in and day out, was able to put a roof over my head and food on my table to make the whole process a little easier.
That's good.
Otherwise, I don't know how I would have made it through nursing school.
So you paid your way through college then?
Yes,
and
I did.
Did you ever look at like scholarships?
I actually started OCC with a scholarship.
Oh, that's good.
It was specifically for students that were in, I believe, the Oakland County area. I applied for it, and so it paid for my first year of OCC. So that made it a little bit easier. But after that, it was trying to pay for it and figure out, you know, how to manage paying for it.
And the nursing program for registered nurse was at OCC as well?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know they had that. That's great.
They have an associate's degree program, which is what I started off with as a nurse.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Are you the only Latina nurse in your hospital floor? And do you ever see other Latina RNs throughout the hospital?
So Beaumont Royal Oak alone is very large. I believe there's upwards of up to 10,000 employees.
It is a large hospital.
It is very big. So I don't really get a whole lot of interaction outside of my unit, but on my unit I am the only Latina nurse that is there.
Okay. And what are the job opportunities like for registered nurses?
Nursing, the opportunities are endless and
That's
numerous.
great.
There are so many opportunities. You can be in a hospital setting, you can be in a clinic, you can be in a doctor's office. There are many, many areas that you can take nursing.
That's good. That's good. A lot of flexibility then.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Why do you think that we did not have more Latinos entering the nursing field?
So I was trying to look at some of the research to figure out why. A lot of what I had found as far back as in articles that go back as far as 2016 showed a lot of it was some sort of a language barrier, financial barriers. For me, English is my first language. Spanish is my yep, and then English or Spanish is my second language. So I can only imagine if Spanish is your first language, how that might be a barrier. Financially, like I said, since it seems like a lot of us are just now getting into universities, it makes it a little more difficult to pay for it.
It's hard to find where you can, financial help is something I think in our Latino community we don't really get anybody to give us a grasp of where to find it easier. You really struggle with that. I know I paid my way through college.
Yes.
I never thought about applying for financial aid or looking for scholarships.
Right.
I just, went ahead and paid through.
When you're the first person to try to get through something, it makes it a little more difficult, which is why I would always try to help my brothers who were younger than me, try to guide their way in order to make it a little bit easier for them since I didn't have that kind of guidance.
And that's why we have the show.
Yes.
So you can guide someone else.
Yeah.
In some locations, bilingual registered nurses are in high demand. Some bilingual registered nurses earn salaries that are slightly higher than their non-bilingual colleagues. How has being bilingual helped you professionally and with caring for Spanish preferred speaking patients?
I feel I'm very happy when I get to use my Spanish at work. A lot of times, a lot of the patients that come in who speak Spanish are actually people who would never end up there without an injury, since with orthopedics a lot of it is just trauma. Even though they might speak both English and Spanish, the medical terminology when it comes to in English, even for an English speaker, might be difficult to understand. Imagine for somebody who might only speak Spanish. It's very scary and difficult. And a lot of times when I've gone into patients' rooms who speak Spanish, it's almost like a sigh of relief for them to see that there's somebody else there that they can connect to a little better or can understand a little better. So that to me it's very rewarding to be able to bring that to the patients.
A year ago, I had a bad fall from a ladder that shattered my tibia bone. And I underwent 3 surgeries, and I was in the hospital for almost 3 weeks. Stacey was my nurse on one of those days. And my mom was a registered nurse, and she worked primarily in labor and delivery, and some years in operating room. I imagine that every area or unit has a slightly different experience. So what's a typical day for a registered nurse in orthopedics?
So typically I start off my day by getting to know my patients, seeing what their plan for the day is, whether it's going home or something as simple as being able to walk to the bathroom. And from there, I try to medicate them, get them ready for physical and occupational therapy, as you know, that is a big part of recovering from an orthopedic surgery. Yes. And then, some go home, and then usually by the mid to late afternoon, I'm getting new orthopedic surgery patients. So day in and day out's constant. What is their goal for today? Managing pain along the way, and that seems to be.
Yeah, and I remember I had different nurses, so I wasn't always having you, but then they all kind of reported to each other, I guess. So that was a big deal, and helping the doctor when he came to
Of course.
change the dressing on my leg.
Yes.
So do you have plans? Do you have plans for expanding in your career as a registered nurse, change to a different area within the hospital, or take specialized classes, or what are your plans?
So some of the plans that I have are to try to find a specialty that I'm very passionate about. Another thing that I would like to do is further my education with a master's degree in nursing education, possibly to be a clinical nurse specialist, or also obtaining my advanced cardiac life support, which I will need in order to move on to the next job that I've just accepted.
Oh, and where is that? Where are you moving to?
I will be working at the Michigan Institute of Neurological Disorders.
Wow, that's great.
And I will be working there in their infusion center to help with multiple sclerosis patients. As you know, it's a very devastating disease. And I will be assisting with infusions of medications in order to help them heal and feel better. There's so much more that they do there, but that's just like the quick synopsis of what they do.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'll be moving around in the next few weeks here.
Wow.
So new experiences to come.
Yeah, so it's exciting because then you're going to get to have other skills as well.
Absolutely.
And you apply what you've learned and having a master's degree. That's great. I also know that you can become a CRNA, certified registered nurse anesthetist.
Once you, if you decide to take that path, you can go through all the schooling and become a registered nurse in the anesthesia field.
Right. And if anyone doesn't know what that means, it's the people that put you under when you're doing an operation. My uncle is that, and every time you see someone, he says, "I had a living passing gas." I'm like, thanks. But really, it's he's putting you under is what he meant.
Especially, of course.
It's a cute way of saying that. But it so anyway, but I really appreciate everything. I'm sure that you inspired a lot of Latinas to consider it, and it's good to know that your journey, how you went through, because like you said, it's one of the things that's very important. One of the things we try to do is post scholarships and ideas, and not only this video, but and if there's any time you want to come back and tell us about your new experience, I think that would be great. So everyone can learn about what it's like to be now in your new area, which is really interesting. I think that's one of the things, like you said, it's immense. So there's so many different places you can go as a nurse.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. So this concludes our show with Ask.The.Latina, and we thank you for joining us.